Operation Crusader ended as a victory, but not the kind of victory that makes a clean final chapter. Tobruk was relieved, Rommel was forced to pull back from the siege, and British and Commonwealth forces had finally done what earlier efforts had failed to do. Yet the Axis army had not been destroyed. Its mobile formations had been battered, strained, and pushed into retreat, but they survived as a fighting force. That is why Crusader matters so much in the history of armored warfare. It was a real achievement, won through persistence, but it was also a warning that relieving a fortress and defeating an enemy army were not the same thing.
The relief of Tobruk was the clearest success. Since April of 1941, the garrison had endured siege, bombardment, isolation, and uncertainty while Rommel's forces held the surrounding desert. Operation Crusader broke that isolation after a campaign that repeatedly seemed close to failure. Contact had been made, lost, and regained before the siege line finally became unsustainable. For the defenders, this meant more than a change on a map. It meant the end of months of enclosure and the restoration of a land connection to the army outside. For Britain and the Commonwealth, it proved that Tobruk had not been held in vain, and that Rommel could be forced away from the fortress.
The victory also mattered because it reversed the psychological pattern created by brevity and battle axe. Those earlier failures had damaged confidence in British armored methods and encouraged the sense that Rommel could turn every British offensive into confusion. Crusader did not make the British army suddenly brilliant at desert war, but it did show that it could absorb shock, continue fighting, and achieve an operational goal despite severe setbacks. That was important. Armies learn not only through neat success, but through battered survival. Eighth Army had come close to crisis, especially after the losses around Sidi Rezazek and Rommel's dash to the wire, yet the offensive did not collapse.
Still, Crusader was limited because the Axis army escaped destruction. Rommel's forces withdrew westward under pressure, but they were not trapped, annihilated, or rendered incapable of future offensive action. This mattered enormously. In armored warfare, pushing an enemy back is useful, but destroying his mobile force is far more decisive. If the enemy retains enough tanks, guns, experienced crews, commanders, and logistical structure to recover, the victory may only reset the campaign. Crusader forced Rommel back from Tobruk and Cyrenaica, but it did not remove him from the desert war. The result was therefore closer to a painful turning point than a final decision. The British and Commonwealth armies paid heavily for that turning point. Tank losses were severe, infantry formations suffered grievously, and the destruction of 5th South African Brigade left a deep scar across the campaign. Many vehicles counted as lost or disabled during the battle were part of a wider story of mechanical breakdown, recovery failure, enemy fire, and exhaustion. Men were killed, wounded, captured, or worn down by days of movement and combat. The victory did not erase those costs, it sat on top of them. A serious account of Crusader has to hold both truths together. Tobruk was relieved, and the price of relief revealed how imperfectly the British still understood mobile armored war.
One of the campaign's central lessons was that armored strength on paper could be misleading. Eighth Army began with substantial tank numbers, including cruiser tanks and American-built Stewards, but numbers alone did not guarantee battlefield control. Tanks were lost in local engagements, scattered by command uncertainty, delayed by maintenance, and exposed when they moved beyond the support of infantry, artillery, and anti-tank guns. The Axis side faced similar material limits, especially fuel, repair, and replacement problems, but Rommel's forces often used their mobile units and anti-tank defenses with sharper tactical effect. Crusaders showed that tank warfare was not a contest of inventories, it was a contest of systems. Combined arms was the heart of the matter. Tanks could open opportunities, but infantry had to hold ridges, engineers had to clear and maintain routes, artillery had to suppress enemy positions,
Anti-tank guns had to protect exposed ground. Reconnaissance had to find danger before it struck, and logisticians had to keep fuel and ammunition moving. The relief of Tobruk was achieved only when these elements, however battered and imperfect, came together often enough to sustain pressure. Where they failed to cooperate, the price was immediate. British tanks were defeated in detail. Infantry became isolated. Headquarters misunderstood the battle. Crusader was therefore a hard lesson in the difference between having combined arms on an order of battle and actually practicing combined arms under fire.
Command was another lesson, and perhaps the most painful one. Cunningham's crisis of confidence, Auchinleck's decision to continue the offensive, and Ritchie's assumption of command all showed how much mobile warfare depended on judgment under uncertainty. Reports from the battlefield were incomplete, late, and often contradictory. Rommel's dash to the wire made the situation appear even more dangerous than it already was. At that moment, Eighth Army might have abandoned an operation that was still recoverable. Auchinleck's insistence on pressing on did not make the campaign elegant, but it preserved the chance for success. Crusader showed that in armored war, nerve at headquarters could be as decisive as courage in the tank turret.
Rommel's performance also deserves a balanced judgment. He inflicted severe damage, reacted aggressively, and repeatedly made British commanders feel that the initiative had slipped away. His use of mobility, counterattack, and psychological pressure remained formidable. Yet Crusader also revealed the limits of his method. His dash to the wire created panic, but did not finish the campaign, and it pulled attention from the decisive ground near Tobruk. His forces were dangerous, but they were not immune to exhaustion, supply strain, or operational overreach. The later legend of Rommel can make his actions seem inevitable. Crusader reminds us that boldness can create opportunity, but it can also leave unfinished problems behind. The New Zealand Division's role in the later phase of the campaign demonstrated another essential truth. A tank battle can be reshaped by disciplined infantry at the right place and time. The New Zealanders moving west helped reopen the path toward Tobruk by fighting for ridges, localities, and corridor ground that armor alone could not secure. Their contribution did not diminish the importance of tanks. It clarified it. Tanks needed infantry to make success durable, and infantry needed armor, artillery, anti-tank guns, engineers, and supplies to survive in a mobile battlefield. Crusader's final success depended on that relationship, especially after British armored brigades had been badly worn down. The campaign's aftermath made the phrase "limited victory" unavoidable. Rommel fell back, Tobruk was relieved, and British and Commonwealth forces could claim a major success after months of frustration. But the Axis withdrawal was not a rout into oblivion. The enemy escaped with enough structure and fighting power to return to the offensive in January of 1942. That fact does not cancel Crusader's achievement, but it does define its limits. The operation solved the immediate problem of Tobruk, but it did not solve the larger problem of defeating Axis armored power in North Africa. The Desert War's biggest lessons and battles still lay ahead. In the longer arc of armored warfare, Crusader sits between early experiments and later mastery. It was far beyond the first massed tank assault at Cambrai, where armor helped break into a trench system but could not produce a complete breakthrough. In the desert, tanks had become faster, more central, and more operationally ambitious, but the problem of exploitation remained. How does an army turn movement into decision? How does it keep armor supplied, coordinated, repaired, and connected to infantry and artillery across a vast battlefield? Crusader answered those questions imperfectly. Its very messiness makes it historically valuable, because it shows an army learning modern armored war in real time. A limited victory is the right ending, because Operation Crusader was neither failure nor clean triumph. It relieved Tobruk, restored British and Commonwealth confidence, and forced Rommel back, but it also exposed deep problems in doctrine, command, armored coordination, and battlefield control. Its success came through endurance after confusion, not through flawless execution. That is why it deserves a place in a series on famous tank battles. Crusader was not just a clash of crusaders, stewards, and panzers. It was a campaign about how armored warfare actually worked when machines met dust, distance, fear, supply, terrain, leadership, and human exhaustion. It was victory, but victory with a warning attached.